A cool breeze rustled through the small garden on the terrace backside. The moon cast a soft glow over the space, illuminating the wooden bench where Jungkook sat. His eyes alight with excitement. He was talking animatedly, his voice bubbling with unfiltered joy. She finally talked to me, actually talked to me, he exclaimed, his hands gesturing wildly. I mean, can you believe it? Jisoo asked me for help. She actually looked at me and spoke to me, not just in passing, not just a polite greeting, but really spoke to me. Wine sat beside him, her hands clenched together in her lap. She forced a tight smile, nodding as if she shared his happiness, but inside her heart felt like it was being torn apart, piece by piece, because this was exactly what she had come here to do. She had traveled back in time to push Jungkook towards his high school crush, to rewrite his fate, one where he wouldn't be left shattered in the future when she was gone. And she succeeded. He turned to her, his wide grin making her chest ache even more. You were right, I believe you know. I mean, I don't know how you know so much, but everything worked. What do we do next? Vian swallowed the lump in her throat and stood up, wrapping her arms around herself as if to hold her breaking heart together. She lifted her gaze to the stars, taking a moment to compose herself, before turning back to him with the same Fijian enthusiasm. Now you have to avoid her, she said, forcing a lightness into her voice. Jungkook's expression fell instantly, his brow furrowed in confusion. What? How is that supposed to help? She just started talking to me and now I have to avoid her? That makes no sense. She even asked me to help her with her homework. One sighed, lowering her gaze. This part was even harder. She knew Jungkook, knew how he wore his heart on his sleeve. Now he would give all of himself if it meant gaining someone's affection. And Jisoo wouldn't even realize how precious that was. That's the problem, she said softly. If you do everything she asked, you'll just be another boy in the long list of guys who had crushed on her. She won't value if you are always there at her convenience. The student might start to talk about you too. Jungkook groaned, running a hand through his hair. Then what I'm supposed to do now? Wine bit her lip, staring at the boy's frustration on his face. The same face that in the future had looked at her with love so deep, so overwhelming that she had once believed it was unbreakable. But the future didn't exist anymore, not for her. She took a breath, steadying herself. If she asks you to do her homework, don't do it. Not outright, at least make an excuse. Tell her you have something else to do, that you are busy. Jungkook immediately shook his head. That won't work. She will get upset. It's not about upsetting her, she said gently. It's about setting boundaries. If you say yes, she won't think twice about asking you again. But if she sees her your own priorities, your own life, she'll see you differently. Jungkook stared at her, pressing her words. Slowly he nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. You're really smart, huh? Wine exhaled a quiet laugh, masking the ache in her chest. Mission Jisoo start now, she said, feigning excitement. Jungkook laughed, shaking his head. You still act like a kid, he teased before reaching out to ruffle her hair. For a second, Wine felt the warmth of his touch, the affectionate gesture so familiar yet so foreign. In the moment, her heart clenched, beating wildly until the moment shattered. Thanks for helping, Appa, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Wine froze. Right, that's what he thought she was, his guide, his helper, a figure sent to assist him. Because he didn't know she was his future wife, the woman who had once been the love of his life. Her lips curled into a soft smile, but pain in her eyes were undeniable. You are welcome, she whispered, and as Jungkook sat there, obvious filled with excitement over Jisoo, Wine silently swallowed the agony of watching the man she loved slip through her fingers, knowing that it was for the best because in the future she would be gone, and she refused to leave him broken. She turned away, letting the wind carry away the tears that threatened to fall, and whispered to herself, It's okay, even if my heart breaks, that is what's the best. The next day, Jungkook did exactly as Wine told him to. When Jisoo approached him in the classroom, a sweet smile on her face as she handed him her notebook, Expecting the usual, he only shook his head gently. Sorry, I can't. I got my own assignment to finish, he said casually before turning back to his desk. Jisoo blinked in surprise. For the first time, Jungkook had refused her. It wasn't harsh, but it was different. He was different. At lunchtime, she looked for him in the cafeteria, but he had already grabbed his food and left before she could even say a word. Even when she passed him in the hallway trying to start a conversation, Jungkook only gave her a small note before excusing himself away, claiming he was busy. It was working. The small distance he put between them made her notice. It made her chase him. And not just Jisoo, other students were started to talk to. After the playground incident where Jungkook had helped her, whispers about them were spreading. Even Jisoo's own friends teased her about it, but she barely listened, because what bothered her most wasn't the rumors. It was Jungkook was avoiding her. Why he was suddenly acting like this when he was always there for her before. She tried to brush it off, but with each passing hour it gnawed at her. She tried to again to approach him after class, reaching for his arm, but Jungkook smoothly dodged, flashing her an apologetic smile. Sorry, I have something to do, he said again. Her brows furrowed. She never had to chase Jungkook before, and it frustrated her in a way she didn't understood. But while Jisoo trying to figure him out, someone else was seething. The entire school knew Mino had feelings for Jisoo, even though she never returned them. He had made it clear that no one else allowed near her, and yet the past 2 days all anyone could talk about was Jisoo and Jungkook. So when Mino saw Jungkook by his locker, casually flipping a notebook, as if he hadn't been warned, rage spun through him. You don't listen, do you, punk? Jungkook barely had time to turn before he was shoved hard against the lockers. His books fell to the floor, but he barely flinched. As he looked up, meeting Mino's furious gaze, Mark and Zen laughed beside him. We warned you, he sneered. Stay away from Jisoo, but look at you, acting like a damn hero. Zen smiled. Bro, he thinks that one little moment with her makes him special in our sister-in-law's eyes. Jungkook clenched his face but refused to back down. Stop calling her that. Jisoo don't belong to you. She can talk to whoever she wants. Mino's jaw ticked. You think you are some kind of big shot now just because she looked at you twice? Jungkook straightened his eyes steady. No, but at least I don't have to force people to be around me. That did it. Mino's ego snapped. With a sharp growl, he threw a punch, his knuckles slamming into Jungkook's jaw with brutal force, sending him stumbling to the ground. Gasp echoed through the hallway. Students rushed to watch as the fight broke out. Jungkook wiped the blood from his lips and instead of cowering, pushed himself back up. Determined even though Mino was bulkier, Jungkook didn't back down. He dodged some hits, but the numbers were against him. Mark and Zen taunted him from the side, laughing, and Mino took full advantage of his strength, landing more blows. Wine arrived in just time to see Jungkook and Mino struggling on the floor, her heart clenched in the sheer panic. Mino pinned Jungkook down, ready to land another brutal hit until a sharp, furious voice rang through the chaos. Mino stopped. The entire hallway fell silent. Jisoo stood there, her expression furious as she stormed through the crowd. Leave him alone. Mino's fist froze mid-air. He turned to look at her, disbelief flashing in his eyes. You're defending him. Jisoo's jaw clenched. Get off him. Mino's hand trembled, his pride cracking. He had always controlled the space around Jisoo, always kept other guys away, but now she was standing in front of everyone openly defending Jungkook. His ego couldn't take it. With a bitter glare, he shoved himself off Jungkook and stood up, fist tightening. His voice was lower, dangerous. You'll regret this, he muttered before storming off, Mark and Zen following him behind. But he wasn't the only one hurting. Van standing at the edge of the crowd watching as Jisoo immediately kneeled beside Jungkook, concern flooding her face. She reached out helping him sit up, brushing his hair back to his injuries. Are you okay? She asked, her voice soft, worried. Jungkook winced but managed a small smile. I'm fine, Jisoo said, shaking her head before grabbing his arm. Come on, let's get you to the medical room. Jungkook blinked, a little dazed, but allowed her to pull him up. The two of them walked off, Jisoo still fussing over him. As Vine stood at the side watching Jisoo care for him, she forced a sad smile as Jisoo dragged Jungkook away, the care evident in her every action. Maybe, just maybe, she was doing the right thing after all. Jungkook lay on the small infirmary bed, his body aching from the fight, but his heart still racing, not from the pain, but from the presence of the girl sitting beside him. She sat on the stool, watching him, her expression unreadable. The nurse had just finished bandaging him up and left, instructing him to rest. But resting seemed impossible when Jisoo was so close. Her eyes filled with something he couldn't quite place. You know, she started softly breaking the silence. Now I understand why you were avoiding me. Jungkook's brow furrowed. He turned his head slightly to look at her. What? Jisoo sat, brushing her hair behind her ear before meeting his gaze. You didn't tell me that Mina was threatening you. Jungkook blinked and exhaled with a small shrug. It wasn't a big deal. He does that to every guy who tried to talk to you. Jisoo frowned, clearly displeased. That doesn't make it okay. Jungkook chuckled lightly, shaking his head. It's just how things are. He's always been like that. Jisoo lips pressed into thin line before she suddenly reached out, placing her hand gently over this. I'll handle Mino. He won't bother you anymore. Jungkook inhaled sharply, his heartbeat quickened at the sudden warmth of her touch. His eyes flickered to her face, so close, so beautiful. His longtime crush, the girl he had admired from afar, was right here, comforting him. It felt unreal. A comfortable silence settled between them, neither of them moving, neither of them wanting to break whatever the moment they had unknowingly created. Then, just as Jungkook thought his heart couldn't take any more surprises, Jisoo spoke again. Hey, do you want to go out with me? Jungkook froze. His brain short circuit, his eyes widened to the point he thought they might pop out of his skull. Had he heard that right? Jisoo was looking down, fidgeting with the hem of her skirt. Her ear tinged pink as she shyly awaited his answer. She was asking him out. Jungkook felt his pulse hammering in his throat. No girl ever asked a guy out unless she liked him, right? Was this real? Did Jisoo like him? In his mind arranged 100 scenarios, but all he could focus on the fact that she actually asked him. The silence stressed, making Jisoo shift uncomfortably. Thinking he wasn't interested, she quickly tried to recover. It's okay if you don't want to, I just thought. No, he blurted out, gripping her hand instinctively. I mean, yes, I would love to. Jisoo blinked as Jungkook suddenly grabbed her hand, holding it firmly as if afraid she might take back her words. I'd love to go out with you, he said, his voice almost breathless. A wide smile bloomed on Jisoo's face, making Jungkook's chest tighten. She looked genuinely happy. Jungkook felt like his heart might explode. Before they could talk more, the school bell rang, signaling the start of the next period. Jungkook sighed. You should go. You don't have to miss class because of me. Jisoo hesitated, glancing at him with concern. Are you sure you'll be okay? He gave her a reassuring note. Yeah, I just need to rest. She still looked unsure, but eventually she stood up. Alright, I'll see you later then. With one last smile, she left, leaving Jungkook alone with his thoughts and a pounding heart. The moment Jisoo left, Wine finally stepped in. She had been waiting outside, her heart clenching at the sight, forcing herself to stay strong. Her steps were slow as she approached the bed, her hands gripping the hem of her sweater tightly. Jungkook seeing her smile tiredly. You don't have to look so worried, I'm fine. Wine sat down beside him, her fingers curling into a fist on her lap. Are you? She asked, her voice quieter than usual. Jungkook nodded, completely fine. Then, as if remembering something, he grinned. You won't believe it. Jisoo just asked me out. Wine felt the air leave her lungs. She stared at him, frozen. She had prepared herself for this. This was her plan. This was exactly what she wanted to happen. But why did it feel like someone had reached inside her chest and crushed her heart? Jungkook continued, obvious to the way her face had paled. I mean, I never expected that. It was so unexpected, but I couldn't say no. I mean, why wouldn't she? He stopped when he noticed Wine hadn't reacted. She was just sitting there, her expression unreadable, frowning. He waved a hand in front of her face. Aren't you happy? I thought this was what you wanted to. She swallowed, forcing a note. Yeah, I'm happy. Her voice betrayed her. It wavered weak, barely above a whisper. But Jungkook, too caught up in his own excitement, didn't notice. Every fiber in her body screamed the opposite. She wanted to tell him, no, don't go. She wanted to say, don't fall for her, please. She wanted to break down and scream, I'm your wife. But she didn't. She swallowed the lump in her throat, pressing her nails into her palms, grounding herself. This is what best for him. She reminded herself this is what he needs. Jungkook let out a tired yawn, stretching slightly. I'm gonna rest now, he mumbled, closing his eyes. Wyan nodded, watching as his breathing evened out. Her hands trembled as she reached out, gently holding his hand. Even now, even when she knew he was slipping away from her, she couldn't stop herself. She squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth that once belonged to her, the fingers that intertwined with her so effortlessly. But now he was slipping through her grasp second by second, and she was letting him go. Tears burned at the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had made her decision. She had chosen this path. Even if it was ripping her apart piece by piece, she had to endure it because no matter how much she wanted to be selfish, Jungkook's happiness mattered more. Now she understood the pain Jungkook must have suffered watching her die every day right before his eyes, yet being unable to save her. And now she was in the same position, watching him slip away from her little by little. She had chosen to bear this pain herself so that Jungkook would never have to feel it in the future. All she could do now, let go of him. Jungkook's room was complete disaster. Clothes were strewn across the bed, the floor, even the chair in the corner. He stood in the middle of the chaos, frustration clear on his face as he tossed another shirt aside. This is useless, he groaned, ruffling his silky hair. I don't have anything decent to wear for a date. Van stood by the door, watching silently as he continued his frantic search. She sighed, pressing her hand to her aching chest. It was almost unbearable watching him so excited, so eager, but not for her. Taking a deep breath, she walked up to him and placed a calming hand on his shoulder. Will you please sit down first? She said softly, guiding him to the bed. You need to calm down. Jungkook let out a frustrated sigh but obeyed, slumping onto the bed. Vine's eyes scanned the mess he had made, searching for something suitable. Then she spotted a white button-up shirt with subtle prints and a pair of black jeans. Picking them up, she held them out for him. Wear these, they look good on you. Jungkook took clothes hesitantly, eyeing them with a doubt. You think so? Vine nodded firmly. Trust me. Now go take a shower and change. With one last glance at her, he sighed and headed towards the bathroom. The moment the door clicked shut, she looks around the room and her eyes landed on nearby calendar. It's 11th February. Her heart stopped because it's the date where her and Jungkook met for the first time. Jungkook is going on date with Jisoo on the day her and Jungkook met. It was their special day. Well, not anymore. Wyan let out a shaky breath, placing a hand over her chest as she tried to steady herself. Oh, what is this sudden pain in her chest? Why does it come back just now? And then the flickering light appeared. Wyan's body tensed as she turned towards the glow, her heart pounding in panic. Jungkook was right there, just a few feet away, showering in the bathroom. She knew what this meant. The light flickered once more and then standing before her was Yoongi, the Grim Reaper. Wyan's breath hissed. Why are you here? She whispered harshly. Jungkook is just in the bathroom. What if he sees you? Yoongi crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. He won't. He can't see or hear me, but you can. Wyan swallowed, anxiety bubbling inside her. Then what's the reason brings you here and you gave me good health? So why I'm feeling this sudden pain? She asked, clutching her chest. I gave you my blessing for good health, but as the time passes, it will deteriorate. Your body from the future is forcing itself back, and by the 7th day, your condition will be at its worst. His sharp gaze met hers. You need to be careful, you don't have much time left as you think. Wyan's heart clenched, so that means she let out a whisper, realization hitting her like a brick. I can't even spend all 7 days with Jungkook until the end. Yoongi remained silent for a moment before speaking in a firm tone. I gave you these 7 days to fulfill your wish, to change the past, but you cannot use this time to get closer to Jungkook or tell him the truth. Wyan froze. I saw you yesterday, he continued. You almost broke the rule. If you tell him the truth, I'll have no choice but to take you back immediately. Whether your wish is fulfilled or not doesn't matter. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to note, I won't tell him. Yoongi studied her for a moment, then just as suddenly as he had appeared, he vanished. And then the bathroom door opened as well. Jungkook stepped out, dressed in the clothes she had picked for him, his damp hair falling effortlessly over his forehead. He looked effortlessly handsome, but Wan couldn't even focus on that. She was still reeling from Yoongi's word. Jungkook rubbed the back of his neck. Who were you talking to? Wan's breath caught for a second, but she quickly composed herself. No one. She forced a smile. You must hurt me talking to myself. Jungkook gave her a suspicious glance but didn't press further. Instead, he groaned, looking down at his outfit. I look like a waiter. Wan shook her head, swallowing the pain in her throat. No, you look amazing. And she meant it, because to her, Jungkook was always handsome, whether in fancy clothes or just hoodie and sweatpants. He still looked uncertain. Maybe I should wear something else. Wan quickly stopped him. You can wear your white sneaker with it. They don't look white anymore. They are worn out. Wan turned him to face her, and for a moment she got lost in his innocent eyes, the same ones she used to gaze in the future, filled with love only for her. But the love doesn't exist here. Clearing her throat, she placed a hand on his arm. Appa, you look amazing. You don't have to overthink it, just a first date. And if Amma truly likes you, she won't care about what you are wearing. Jungkook stared at her, processing her words. Then finally he nodded. You're right. Wine forced a small smile, but deep down her heart felt like it was cracking apart, because she remembered this moment all too well. Back in future, before their first date, Jungkook had been just as nervous, and just like now she had reassured him, telling him the exact same words. But those moments, they would no longer exist because she was rewriting the future. She took a deep breath and looked him in the eyes, forcing herself to say the words that would seal her fate. If you truly like her and you feel that she likes you too, then go and enjoy your time with her. Don't worry about these trivial things. Jungkook exhaled deeply and gave her a grateful smile. Thanks, Wine. Then, just like that, he turned and walked towards the door. Wine stood there watching him leave, watching her husband walk away to go on date with someone else. The moment the door shut behind him, she let out a shaky breath and slumped onto the bed. The pain in her chest intensified. It was unbearable, suffocating. She tried to endure it in front of him, but as soon as he left, her resolve broke, and she no longer controlled the throbbing, increasing each second by with rage breaths. She tried to ease the pain by rubbing her chest, not understanding how to control it, feeling dizzy as the room in front of her started to spin. In the future, whenever this pain struck, Jungkook had been there. He had always been there to hold her, to soothe her, to take her pain away. But he wasn't there because she had pushed him away. Now she had to bear this alone, curled on the bed trying to calm herself. Her vision blurred with tears as she reached out for the hoodie laying on his bed. It was his warm and familiar. She hugged it closer to her chest, inhaling his lingering scent as if it could somehow ease the pain. But it didn't. Nothing did. Because no matter how tightly she held on to the hoodie, Jungkook wasn't there to ease the pain. He won't come. The evening air was crisp, the streetlight casting a soft glow over the pavement as Jungkook and Jisoo walked side by side, a comfortable silence settling between them. Both of them wore small content smile, their hearts lighter after spending the evening together. Jungkook felt lighter than he had in a while. He hadn't expected to enjoy himself this much, but Jisoo was surprisingly easy to talk to. The rumors about her school painted as her someone cold and unapproachable, but tonight he had seen a different side of her, a bright, kind, and funny girl who made conversation flow effortlessly. The content smile rested on Jisoo's lips as she tucked the strand hair behind her ear. You know, she started, glancing at him. I'm really glad we did this. I don't know you properly before, but you actually a really sweet guy, Jungkook. Jungkook felt his cheeks warm at her words. Oh, thanks, he mumbled, scratching the back of his head shyly. I also feel good spending time with you. You're not like what people say at school. Well, I guess that's what make two of us. People say you are a brooding, mysterious guy, but in reality, you're just overthinker. Jungkook chuckled, shaking his head. That obvious, huh? She nodded playfully. Very. As they continued walking, their hands accidentally brushed. Jungkook immediately pulled his hand back and muttered a quiet sorry. Jisoo, however, just laughed at his nervousness. Jungkook got too uptight. She reached for his hand without hesitation, intertwining her finger with his. You can hold hands with me, you know. Jungkook looked at her wide-eyed, but before he could say anything, she had already started pulling him forward. His heart raced, not because he didn't like it, but because it was still new, still unfamiliar. I love to go out with you more, she said softly, squeezing his hand. Jungkook hesitated for a second, but then nodded, yeah, me too. As they walked, something caught Jisoo's attention. She abruptly stopped in front of a toy store, eyes lighting up as she spotted a small teddy bear displayed in the window. Oh, that's so cute, she said, pointing at the plush toy. I want it. Jungkook followed her gaze and smiled. I can get it for you. Wait here. Jisoo beamed. Really, you don't have to. Jungkook, I insist, he said before she could protest. Stepping inside, he quickly scanned the shelves for the teddy bear. There weren't many left, and just as he spotted the last one, he reached for it, only to feel another hand brushed against his. The touch sent a jolt through him as a soft gasp escaped from the other person as well. Lifting his gaze, his breath hissed, only to freeze in absolute shock. Standing in front of him was Ryan. But something was wrong. She wasn't wearing the sundress she usually wore. Instead, she was in a school uniform. Her face looked noticeably younger, her features soft and untouched by time. Jungkook's heart began pounding loudly in his chest, an unexplainable rush of emotion flooding his system. His throat went dry as he tried to make sense of what was happening. Ryan blinked at him, completely oblivious to his inner turmoil. Mister, can you please let me have this? I really need this teddy bear. Jungkook felt his breath hissed at the unfamiliar way she addressed him. Mister, she was speaking to him as if they were strangers. Jungkook couldn't believe what he was seeing. She doesn't recognize me. He hesitated before finally saying, I need it too. He glanced outside where Jisoo was waiting. It's for someone. Wan followed his gaze, spotting Jisoo standing near the entrance. She hummed in understanding before turning back to him. Oh, I see you want to give it to your girlfriend. Jungkook stiffened at her words, but before he could correct her, Wan said, I also want to give this to my boyfriend, but I don't have enough money left. Jungkook grips on teddy bear tightened. Her boyfriend? She turned her gaze back to him, pleading softly, can you please let me have it? Jungkook swallowed. He didn't know what was happening to him, but something about the way she looked at him, her wide eyes filled with silent hope, made his heart feel weak. Why he was reacting like this? His grip on teddy bear loosened, and before he knew it, he let go. Wine's face lit up as she quickly hugged the plushie to her chest, beaming at him. Thank you so much. Jungkook didn't respond. He simply stood there, watching her completely dumbfounded. Wine bowed slightly in gratitude before walking away towards the counter to pay for the beer. Jungkook's eyes followed her, the entire time his mind racing with questions. This isn't the same Wine from before. That means there is two of them. It's that, so who is the one at my house? The Wine at his home is the one who claimed to be his daughter. Then who is this Wine? Could it be possible for same face two people exist? If yes, then who is this girl? Is there a relation between two? If Wine is my daughter, then she won't exist at this time, right? His mind drifted back to when Wine introduced herself as his daughter. Could it be she's lying to me? His eyes widened as he felt unease. His body felt numb, his thoughts spiraling in confusion when a hand suddenly landed on his shoulder. Jungkook, He jolted slightly, turning to see Jisoo was standing beside him, looking at him with concern. Are you okay? You look pale, like you have seen a ghost. Jungkook blinked rapidly, snapping out of his daze. I'm fine, he muttered, forcing himself to breathe. Sorry, the teddy bear are all sold out. Jisoo glanced at the empty shelf and shrugged with a small smile. That's okay, it wasn't that important. But Jungkook barely registered her words. His eyes darted back towards where Wine had just stood moments ago. She was gone. Panic surged through him as he rushed outside, his eyes scanning the street. She wasn't there. She had disappeared. A strange, unbearable emptiness settled in his chest. It felt like something precious had been ripped away from him. He didn't understand it, but the feeling wouldn't leave him. Jisoo followed him out, watching his sudden change in demeanor with growing concern. Jungkook, what's wrong? He swallowed hard, trying to mask the unease clawing at his insides. I'm not feeling well. His voice was tight. Can we go home? Jisoo frowned, clearly worried, but nodded. Of course. As they walked back, Jisoo again reached for his hand, but this time the warmth didn't ease the uneasiness in his chest. Because his mind was elsewhere. Because there was only one person who could answer his questions. The one at his home. The one who looked just like the girl from the store. Jungkook realizes they weren't the same person, and now Jungkook knew they are two of ones.